Hello everybody, I'm back with another Marvel Legends action figure review, and this is a little bit different because we have essentially a deluxe figure release here, because this is the partnership between Marvel Legends and Magic the Gathering. And you'll have to forgive my ignorance here because I'm not really familiar with Magic the Gathering, other than obviously it's clearly a card-based game, and they've crossed over with Marvel to produce something a little bit different and a bit special here. But as a long-term Marvel Legends action figure collector, I am quite excited because we've actually got a variant of Spider-Man that I never really realised I wanted, which is a battle-damaged version of Spidey. And as soon as I saw this, I knew I had to get my hands on. Now, oddly, the figure does come in at a much higher price point than you would typically pay for a Marvel Legends figure. I'm not quite sure how they've managed to justify that, other than we're getting a special trading card in here. And perhaps that's where the extra values come from, I'm not sure. But nevertheless, let's kick off by taking a look at this packaging, which we can see straight away is a little bit different to what we typically get in the Marvel Legends line. For starters, this is a much larger box, i.e. it's a lot broader than we typically get, so a lot wider there. It is a very different layout and design. We do have lots of images taken from comic books across the years featuring Spider-Man, which is really nice. So a bit of a collage in the background there around the borders. We have, of course, the logos of Magic the Gathering and Spidey, and then we have this window display up front and centre showing off the trading card as well as the figure and some of his accessories. This all looks really fun and quite nice and presentable. But the highlight for me is actually the side panel, which has this really nice artwork. This actually looks like Glenn Fabry's artwork to me, although he's not credited here, so maybe it's a different artist. But I still love this. I think this looks really nice, more of a painterly style, and I think this looks really cool. This is a very striking image, and I love that it's completely unspoiled by any small print. And then on the reverse, we actually have a lineup of the other figures that are available in this wave as well, which are all quite fun. The style is actually really nice. I like how they've posed the images with their various backdrops. This is actually really quite attractive and quite displayable in its own right. And then of course we have a lot of small print towards the bottom there, but this is quite a fun approach and very different to what we usually get. And then as a nice little extra, on the inside we have this interior card inlay, which acts as a bit of a diorama. Again, it's in that very painterly style, which is really, really nice. And I think it's a little bit different to what we usually have. So this is quite fun in its own right. So then, the figure itself, well, no surprises here to think that essentially what we have is a base mold Spider-Man that has been tweaked considerably to give us an authentic variant. So if we start off by taking a look at the head sculpt, then we can see that even here we're seeing significant differences to what we've had before on previous Spider-Man releases, because even the head sculpt is immediately different, because of course we have the standard mask there, but we also have some hair poking through, which is really cool. We can even see a tear in the mask on the lower left-hand side of the cheek there as well, which is really, really nice. So nice to see that this costume's already being torn up and damaged quite a bit, which is really fun. And if we look a little bit more detail at those individual bits and pieces, we can see that the tearing of the mask is quite nice. It's actually a little bit of a cut on the side of his cheek there as well, which looks very nicely done. So a little bit of extra detail, which is very much appreciated. The hair coming through is a nice touch. It is clearly a separate piece, and we can see that it is elevated beyond the mask, which is as it should be. What lets us down a little bit for me, though, is the fact that there is no paint wash running over this, just to make it feel a little bit more authentic, a bit more real. It does feel very plastic-like it has just been stuck on there, which of course is the case. So I think if it just had a bit of a wash, this would make it feel a little bit more realistic. Now, in terms of the central mould on the body, this is essentially recycled from other figures. We've seen this before in multiple occasions. However, there are some subtle differences here that have required a little bit of extra sculpting and tooling that we've not seen previously, which is really appreciated. So on the very upper torso, we can see that the costume's been torn. This is actually sculpted in, and this is really, really effective. Where we see the break in the costume and the skin tone coming through, that's actually a sculpted tear as opposed to a painted tear. That's great. Likewise, where we see the scarring in there and the cuts, this has all been sculpted in and not just painted in. So this is really, really cool to see, and it's very striking because they've not scrimped here. They've not done it just a little bit. They've actually placed quite a lot of battle damage on the Spidey, which is really, really nicely done. And they've placed an awful lot of attention on the arms in particular, which is really well done. We're seeing the individual cuts on the shoulder and on the upper bicep there. Again, these are actually sculpted in and painted over, which is fantastic, giving it a sense of depth and texture and authenticity, I suppose, making this feel realistic, which is absolutely fantastic. But we also see little chunks just missing out some of the gloves there as well, and on the arms. This is pretty much all over. And again, we can see this on the legs and on the boots even as well. Just even little chunks taken out of the boots here and there. So to make this really feel quite authentic, very patchwork, very random in terms of where those cuts are, making it feel much more realistic. So all in all, I think they've done a fantastic job of capturing the battle damage on this figure. It feels great. It feels so asymmetrical and random. Looking at the articulation, he has a ball joint at the top of the neck there, so the head will rotate all the way around and it will lean left and right a little bit as well. The head, of course, will nod forwards and backwards. Not quite as much as I was hoping for, to be honest with you, but it's decent enough, I suppose. He does have ball joints in the shoulders, though, and there is a wonderful butterfly wing joint there in that shoulder, which is absolutely fantastic. His arms can really come forwards and backwards, and I love seeing this on my Marvel Legends figures. There's the complementary bicep swivel, of course, a double pin at the elbow, so the hand will go all the way back to the head there, and then we have the standard pin swivel at the wrist, allowing that hand to rotate all the way around and hinge forwards and backwards. In the waist, he's got articulation in the top of the torso there, allowing him to move from side to side and lean left and right a pretty healthy distance. And then he also has an ab crunch at the bottom of the waist, which is fantastic, meaning he can bend forwards and backwards a pretty healthy distance because he's got two joints to play with here, which just gives him that extra reach, which is absolutely lovely for a Spider-Man figure. He's got ball joints in the hips, the legs will kick out to the side, there's the thigh swivel at the top there as well, and there's also another one at the top of the boot cut. And the legs will kick forwards, they'll kick backwards, there's a double pin at the knee there, allowing that lower leg to kick all the way back, and of course we have the standard ankle rocker as well, so that foot will hinge forwards and backwards, but also rock from side to side, before finally we also have some toe articulation. Now, I'm a man who loves his accessories, so what goodies do we get with this version of Spidey? Well, we get an additional 2 pairs of hands, so 2 flipping hands and 2 crawling hands. We also get this unmasked Peter Parker head, also battle damage, which is brilliant. We get this web shield, which I don't think we've ever had before, and we get this web line. And let's not forget, we also get that Magic the Gathering card here as well, which features that lovely artwork that we see on the packaging. So I just want to spend a moment or two looking at this alternate head, which I think is really cool. I like having a Peter Parker head, but this one is pretty special because it's battle damage as well. I think this is a brand new sculpt. I don't think we've had a Peter Parker head quite like this before. And of course, it does feature a very puffed up eye there, a black eye, which is very nicely done. I have to say the paint apps around that and even the sculpting is very well achieved to create that effect. I think that looks really, really cool. And then we have the extra cuts on the face there as well, which is absolutely brilliant. So he really looks like he's been through the mill, this version of Spidey, which is fantastic. That's what you want, surely, with a battle damage Spidey. So I love this. It's enough, but not too much, which is great. And there's plenty to look at here in terms of the detail, which is loads of fun. Again, my criticism around the hair remains. Unfortunately, this is just a matte plastic brown. I really wish there was just a little bit of a black wash running through this just to bring it to life a little bit more. It does feel a bit plasticky otherwise, but nevertheless, this is a really great sculpt. Now, I also really like this web shield as well. I said before that I think this is the first time we've had this. It's possible this has been recycled from a previous release, maybe that Maximum Series Spidey, which I didn't get. However, this is a really nice prop, really cool to get something a little bit different and obviously web-based for the character, which is really fun. So for me, this is the first time I own this, and I think this is a really nice little prop. I'm slightly less impressed with the web line itself because I'm not quite sure how to use this. It's got this kind of hook on the end which he can kind of put his fist through, but it doesn't really look like he's holding it. I'm not quite sure how you're supposed to do with this, really. I think the idea is that you put the end piece on a prop somewhere and hang him from it, maybe. It just feels a little bit unruly on its own, but maybe you have to be a bit more creative than I am to get the most out of this. And of course, as you'd hope, he's got the crawling hands there, so you can create some cool crawling poses. I'm not the best at really being able to get the most out of my figures, I think, in this regard, but it does look cool, and I think it works quite well. And if you're a bit more sophisticated in terms of pushing your figures to the limits, in terms of creating really fun displays, then I think you could do a lot with this articulation scheme. And I think all in all, there's actually a lot of different pieces here that are interchangeable that can create a lot of different looks that can be, interchanged almost at random, really, to create a different vibe for your battle damage Spidey. So I love this. There's several stages here at play, and I think you can have an awful lot of fun. It feels very versatile and dynamic, no matter what you do with him, really. Okay then, final thoughts from me. I'm going to give this 4 stars. I think this is a really brilliant figure, actually. I'm really, really pleased with him. I'm not quite sure how they've justified the increase in price for this particular release, because essentially we are getting a similar Spider-Man that we've had before. Admittedly, there's a lot more sculpting, a lot more paint apps, mostly, that warrant a little bit more attention, which is fantastic. I love some of the props that we're getting here. Very, very fun indeed. And as I said, I think it's quite a versatile figure where you can do an awful lot with it. So there's a lot to love with this figure. The reason I've knocked off a star is there's just little things that I think could have been improved upon. And probably the loudest one of those is the fact that we just need a little bit more of a wash, guys. I'm always saying this, a bit of a wash over some of our figures would be really nice, particularly in this case on the hair of this figure, just to really bring that to life. Otherwise, this is a really top-notch figure, and I think they've done a really nice job with it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving the video a like. That kind of thing really does help the channel out and it allows me to keep making more content. And if you're interested in seeing more content, remember to hit subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos coming soon.